Ako si Mark Lopez and my program is Pugad Vloggers, aired every Monday to Friday from 7 to 8 p.m. sa Radyo Bandido TV simulcast on DZRJ 8:10 a.m. sa Sky Cable Channel 224 TV Plus boxes and on free-to-air TV. Also sa facebook.com DZRJ 8:10 a.m. and our official YouTube channel.
Pugad Vloggers, Pugad Vloggers, ang kurap titirisin, sa loob sa bayan wawalisin, walang sasantuhin, ang saya-saya nakakabaliw, kasama natin ang tropa. Pugad Vloggers, Pugad Vloggers.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Ang bilis ng mga araw, matest na naman. At ngayong gabi ay isang espesyal na episode ng Pugad Vloggers dahil tayo ay pinalad na magkaroon ng guest sa gabing ito. Kaya ang aking tinutukoy ay walang iba kundi si Mr. Tea Moreno. Yan, Mr. Tea Moreno. Paki-open na. Yan. So let us welcome Mr. Tea Moreno tonight, our special guest, and we will discuss a lot of things, including but not confined to the confidential and intelligence funds of the Office of the Vice President and also of the Department of Education. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Mr. Tea Moreno.
Magandang gabi sa iyo, Doc Ethel, and thank you so much for inviting me here. Hi to all our viewers.
Pleasure, it's our pleasure. Okay, so mag-umpisa tayo sa pamamagitan ng pag-define. Ano ba yung confidential fund at ano ba yung intelligence fund? Ayan, so bigyan natin ng background, no? Kung ano ang pinag-uusapan natin. Ang mga government, national government agencies, no, at even the local governments are allowed to have confidential funds. Ayan, no? Basahin natin, no? Basahin natin ang sinasabi ng 2015. Ito yung pinagbabasihan natin, ano? 2015 Joint Circular between Commission on Audit, the Department of Budget and Management, yan yung nagbibigay, nag-allow ng pera para sa mga ahensya ng mga gobyerno. Ang Department of the Interior and Local Government, Governance Commission for Government-Owned and Controlled Corporations or GCG, and the Department of National Defense. So, okay, ang confidential and intelligence funds are lump sum allocations set aside in the national budget for expenses that involve surveillance and intelligence information gathering activities. So sino ba yung pwede magkaroon ng confidential and intelligence fund? Yan. So ang confidential and intelligence fund, katulad ng aking nasabi, ay para sa mga national government agencies, no? All right. So hold on. So, ano ba ang gamit? No? Ano ba ang gamit? Para saan ba yung confidential and intelligence fund? Okay. So, ang confidential fund, ito, no, can only be used for the following expenses: purchase of information necessary for the formulation and implementation of program, activities, and projects relevant to national security and peace and order. Rental of transport vehicle related to confidential activities, rentals and the incidental expenses related to the maintenance of safe houses, purchase or rental of supplies, materials, and equipment for confidential operations that cannot be done through regular procedures without compromising the information gathering activity concerned, payment or rewards to informers, and uncovering and preventing illegal activities that pose a clear and present danger to agency personnel or property or other facilities and resources under the agency protection, done in coordination with appropriate law enforcement agencies. So let's go back mamaya dun sa huling sinabi, no? Huling paragraph about the confidential fund. At para saan naman ang intelligence fund? It can only be used for the following expenses: intelligence and counterintelligence activities that have direct impact on national security, special projects and case operation plans as approved by the head of agency involving covert or semi-covert psychological, internal security operation, and peace and order activities, as well as programs, projects, and campaigns against lawlessness and lawless elements involving intelligence activity. So who gets it? National government agencies, so the Office of the President, Office of the Vice President, okay, departments of our government, Department of Agriculture, Department of Foreign Affairs, yung mga ganyan po, no? Can get both confidential and intelligence funds, while local governments and GOCCs can only get confidential funds, walang intelligence fund. Huh? All right. So, ino-audit ba yan? Ino-audit din po. Although, ang ano ngayon is before they approve your request for confidential and intelligence fund, you have to have a plan. Okay? Outline physical and financial plans supporting the request for these funds. Yan. So, yan po ang ating unang definition. Ano? Now, Theo, so ang dami ng sinasabi, no? Tungkol specifically for the confidential and intelligence funds of the Office of the Vice President and as Secretary of the Department of Education. So, paano maipaliliwanag ng Office of the Vice President and Office of the Department of Education ang pangangailangan nito sa intelligence fund?
Actually, Doc Ethel, the explanation about the confidential funds of DepEd and OBP have been said already in the plenary hearing, and it has been, reported in media, mainstream media, and social media. It's just that those explanations are something that the enemies of the state do not want to hear from VP Sara. Diba? So it's clear DepEd already stated that the confidential funds is being used to fight the insurgency recruitment of the NPA inside the school campuses. It will be used to help out the DepEd to give solutions and address the pressing problems in terms of sexual grooming, abuse amongst kids, and the growing sexual abuse, online sexual exploitation sa mga kabataan natin po. And for the DepEd, it's very clear that since August, before the confidential funds were given to the Office of the Vice President, sinabi na lahat ang programa, and one of the programs that the OVP plans to implement is the Peace 911. And we know exactly how Peace 911 transformed Davao City into the safest city, not only in the Philippines, but in the whole world. So that alone would need surveillance. Kanina, sinabi mo na yung purposes ng confidential funds. So doon yun ginagamit. What these people want to hear from VP Sara is they want to go into details as to how the surveillance works, which if VP Sara will do that, defeats the purpose of the confidential funds.
Oo, no? The very definition of confidential is you do not divulge it to the public, probably to some agencies, no, that would have any connection with the activities that are within the that are involved in the operations, no, but not to the public, no, because yun nga, no, if you are battling an enemy, you do not telegraph, no, your plans,
right?
Diba? Oo.
Right.
So, nabanggit mo kanina, no? So the whole purpose, the main purpose of the Confidential and Intelligence Fund of the Department of Education, no? Ihiwalay natin yung sa Department of Education and the Office of the Vice President is to protect our young, no? Dahil edukasyon, ano, hindi mo maihiwala yung edukasyon sa pag-aruga sa kanila dahil ang paaralan, ang pangalawa nilang tahanan, hindi ba, Tio?
That is correct, and we know exactly that the mandate of DepEd Doc Ethel is to protect each kid, each learner from any form of abuse that hinders them to exercise their constitutional rights. So if we continue to allow the enemies of the state to recruit these children, to bring them in the mountains and destroy their future, then we are us, for example, as people who are supporting VP Sara on her programs, we are also allowing that injustice to happen to the kids. So that is something that I want people to realize now. The confidential fund was asked not for the personal benefits of VP Sara, but this was asked to help out the kids create a fertile ground in the future, Doc.
Oo, no? So alam mo, madami tayong nababalitaan, ano, na siyempre mga bata yan eh. And ang kanilang mga brains ay hindi pa developed. No? There are areas of their brain that are immature and very vulnerable to brainwashing, no? And very impulsive. No? So ang mga recruiters ng mga rebellion, mga groups na nagre-rebelde laban sa pamahalaan, ano, napakadali nilang mapasok ang brain ng ating mga kabataan. Mga kabataan na magiging citizens, no, in the future, no? So kailangan nating protektahan, ano, physically, na hindi sila maa-access nitong mga subversive groups na ito at ma-recruit, no? And also mentally, no, sa pagtuturo sa kanila ng kung ano man ang mga kasinungalingan na itinatanim sa kanilang mga murang isipan. No? Kanina nasabi mo yung grooming. Ano ba yung grooming, Tio?
Grooming, yeah. Paano ko ba to explain? I don't want to mention names just to give an example, but it's more on like the sexual aspect ng young, for example, teacher and student relationship, yung mga ganyan po. So, before VP Sara became the DepEd secretary, I mean, before she accepted the role to be our DepEd secretary, record shows that there are 1,800 more or less cases of child abuse and exploitation sa DepEd po, unresolved cases. And there are 15 regions who have yet to submit their reports. So that means, I don't have the record now, but that means that 1,800 cases, feeling ko sumobra, I mean, it increased na. So that means to say, Doc, na we really need to protect them. And it's one of the reasons why DepEd created the LRPO, the Learners' Right Protection Office, and at the same time, they established the TeleSafe Contact Center. The TeleSafe Contact Center, Doc, it's a helpline wherein yung mga abuse, yung victims, they can call directly if something happens to them. And then the DepEd has agents na siyang nangangasiwa. They work on it. So automatically, if there's a problem, ma-report na siya, hindi na siya sasabit. Because the system of DepEd is, if my problem, go to the principal, go to the division office, regional office, then the national office. Ngayon, it's a direct report. So automatically, the DepEd can take a look at that problem.
Itong sexual, ano ba to? Predatory acts, no? Ito ba yung mga nangyayari sa loob ng paaralan o kahit sa labas ng paaralan? Anong scope nito? Yan ba yung take advantage sa mga teachers, mga tauhan sa paaralan?
Sorry. Iba-iba po yung cases. May mga nangyayari talaga inside the school campuses and iba sa mga boarding houses and outside the school. So, if you take a look at the entire situation, there is really something, there is a gap that we need to fill in, diba? And that is the reason why the confidential fund was asked, because the mere purpose, I mean, the basic purpose of the confidential funds is for surveillance, right? So if we enable DepEd to do that, then it would be easier for them to fulfill their mandate. We should remember, Doc Ethel, that one of the ways to destroy a country is actually to corrupt its youth and destroy its youth, because they are our future teachers, engineers, scientists, doctors, nurses, di ba? So once nasira na yung youth natin, our country will be weak as well. So ngayon pa lang, when VP Sara knew all of those things na ganito pala kadumi ang nangyayari sa DepEd, I think we should craft a project or program that would automatically help us out. So kaya diretso, they establish automatically the DepEd TeleSafe Contact Center, the Learners' Rights Protection Office, digitalize po lahat para po mabilis po yung action po.
So, ang protection, protection ng pag-iisip, protection ng kanilang mga social conditions, siguro sa mga boarding house at sa mga paaralan nang hindi sila, alam mo, siguro kasama na rin dyan yung mga bullying, at mga harassment sa ating mga paaralan. Napakagandang yan. Tama yung sinabi mo na the way to destroy our country would be to destroy the young. To weaken our country would be we start from making the young vulnerable, and weak, So talagang importante 'yon. Ano ba ang mga bukod sa mga nasabi mo, ano pa yung mga ongoing na activities ng Department of Education na kinakailangan talaga ng intelligence and confidential funds?
Yes po, aside from the abuses, sexual grooming, NPA recruitment, data shows as well, Doc Ethel, that the people, students, or learners involved in drug addiction are increasing as well. So, isa yan sa parang binibigyang pansin ng Department of Education, so that they would be able to really parang focus on the learners. Because the arguments coming from the opposite side of the political spectrum is this. They said that DepEd is not a security agency. So why is there a need for DepEd to ask for the confidential funds? What they fail to understand is that the confidential funds are given to civilian-led agency, which is DepEd is part of it. So if DepEd wanted to focus on its learners, Doc Ethel, I think it's just necessary for them to ask for the confidential funds. Yes, we acknowledge the presence of our PIDEA, PNP, AFP, our anti-𝗕𝗪C, but their mandate is so broad. They cover almost everyone in the country. Those people who are in the mountains, in the cities, or in the valleys, covered nila lahat. But there is no much focus on the education, knowing that militarization is not also allowed in our school campuses. So they are triggered if Congress continues to give confidential funds to VP Sara as a DepEd secretary. Why? The focus will be automatically concentrated to the welfare of the students. So there is one agency na magpo-focus na para sa mga learners. So yan yung kinakatakot nila.
Oo. Naku, alam mo na, at talaga naniniwala ko sa sinabi ng pangalawang Pangulo na kung ikaw ay salungat dito sa pagkakaroon ng Department of Education at ng Office of the Vice President ng Confidential and Intelligence Fund, ay salungat ka sa pagsugpo ng katiwalian at ng seguridad, pag-secure ng kapayapaan ng ating bansa, nasabi mo kanina, yung ano ba tong I lost my train of thought, but ang isa pa ay yun nga, ang droga, na ating inaalagaan ang ating mga kabataan sa droga, na napakadali talagang mapasok ng mga paaralan. Yung kanina na sinabi mo, nasabi nila, bakit kailangan pa ng Department of Education ng mga pondong ito, meron namang police, no? Meron namang other law enforcement agencies like PIDEA. Pero maihahalin tulad natin yan sa bahay natin, no? Kahit na may mga barangay tanod, may mga security guard,
True.
diba? Atin din naman na role, no? Na ang ating kapaligiran, ang ating mga pinto ay ilalak natin. Ang mga gate natin ay ilalak natin. Sisiguraduhin natin na safe ang ating kapaligiran sa anumang sakuna. Halimbawa ay lilinisin natin, hindi magka-fire, no? Lilinisin natin para hindi pagbahayan ng mosquitoes for our health. At ganun din naman na isi-secure natin para, alam mo, di ba, opportunity makes a thief nga, di ba? So we do everything. We even put, yung mga ibang bahay, they even put CCTV cameras para hindi sila mapasok ng masasamang loob. Ganun din, no? Si VP Sara, ang kanyang kabahayan ay ang Department of Education. At kanyang isi-secure ito, no? Kanyang, role niya yan, meron siyang mandate na i-secure ang Department of Education at ang mga bata na nag-aaral laban sa kapahamakan. Kahit nga may mga police pa or other law enforcement agencies na nasa kapaligiran. Diba?
Yes, Doc. The one thing then we need to ask is that despite the presence of our police officers, our national security agencies, why are we seeing an increasing number of drug addicts na ginagawa, mga young kids na naging drug addicts? Why are we seeing an increasing number of gangsterism in school campuses? Why are we seeing a lot of schools right now who are involved in NPA recruitment? And why are we seeing a lot of reports for teachers na connected sa CPP, NPA, NDF? That is because, Doc, na infiltrated na talaga yung mga schools natin. The communist terrorist groups were able to craft a very comprehensive framework din na pinapollow nila. And that's the reason why they wanted to overthrow the government, because they have their own system. So we need to understand that they are also, strategic and intelligent people, and we need to we need to combat them by also doing some projects and programs that would definitely expose them. And this is the reason why they are against it. And you know what? I affirm the statement of VP Sara when she said na ang kumukontra sa confidential funds ay kumukontra sa kapayapaan. Ang kumukontra sa kapayapaan ay kalaban ng bayan, because the main reason why the confidential fund was asked to begin with is for peace and prosperity. So that means if you attack the confidential funds for nothing, that means you are against peace and prosperity, and that means you are an enemy of the state. Yun po.
Clearly stated, nabanggit mo, naalala ko, na sinabi mo, ang ating mga paaralan ay infiltrated by groups that seek to overthrow the government. Yan. Diba? May mga grupo-grupo, na hindi ko nasasabihin, pero sila ay mga front organizations ng CPP, NPA, Itong mga organisasyon na ito na nakakalat nationwide sa ating mga paaralan, Hindi natin alam na habang sila ay nagtuturo ng kanilang mga subjects ay on the side, sila din ay napakalaki ng impluwensya ng mga guro sa mga isip ng mga kabataan, So, hindi kailangan na taong labas ang mag-impluwensya, mag-recruit dito sa ating mga kabataan, kundi mga guro, mga kawani na miyembro ng mga front ng CPP, NPA na nagtuturo, na nasa plantilla ng Department of Education na maaari sila mismo ay mag-recruit ng mga kabataan para sumanib sa mga grupo na lalaban sa gobyerno, mamumundok. Madalas tayo nakakakita, nakakarinig sa ating sa mga balita na estudyante nawala, napatay, sa engkwentro, batang-bata, 16, 18 taong gulang, hiniwalay sa kanilang mga magulang, ng mga puwersa na ito na who seek to overthrow the government.
That is true, Doc. We should remember that based on the previous record of the NTFL-CAC, 12% of in the total number of NPAs who surrendered are actually minors. So that means na marami na talaga ang na-recruit, and numbers don't lie. 'Di ba? May record 'yan, isa-isa. So if for example, if you are someone who opposed that number, that means you are para bang allowing them to infiltrate more, to recruit more, and to destroy more of our children's future. Yan po.
Kailangan siguro, no, kasama dyan sa confidential and intelligence funds na yan ay pagmamanman. Pagmamanman, kasama yan no? Sa mga guro, no, na nasususpetsahan na naghihimok sa mga kabataan na mag-join ng mga grupo, no, na sila ay lalaban sa gobyerno. Mamanmanan, kasama yan no, intelligence gathering costs money, no. Hindi naman po pwede yun na you will engage untrained people, you will engage kung sino-sino na lang na maggagawa ng intelligence work for you. Siyempre, these people are highly trained, and as such, you have to pay, no. Sabi nga pay peanuts, you get monkeys, no? Napaka-sensitive na activity ito na hindi mo i-engage yung kung sino-sino na lang, ba? Tiyo?
Tama. And you know what, Doc? What people fail to also consider is the fact na the DepEd is boosting its last mile schools program. Ito po yung mga schools, Doc, na nasa malayong lugar, nasa far-flung areas. So in order to strategically position those schools, those classrooms, Doc, we really need surveillance, we really need informers, in order naman na yung safety ng mga kabataan, ma-prioritize din natin. So ngayon, if I am not mistaken, I'm actually looking at the number. If I am not mistaken, the Department of Education is planning or currently building 80 more or less last mile schools program across the country. So nasa mga bulubundukin po yan. So kailangan talaga natin ng information gathering, kailangan natin ng surveillance para naman lang while we are giving out education, free education to our learners, we are also protecting them from any form of harm that may come their way.
Oo. Meron kang share kanina, no?
Yes,
na po. Mga activities ng Department of Education, no? At hinahanap ko, no? Pero yun nga, ang isang nabanggit mo ay yung last mile, no?
Yes,
kasi importante yan dahil sa mga far-flung na lugar, no? Hirap talaga ang ating mga kabataan, yung mga iba, no? Nakikita mo tumatawid pa ng ilog, no?
Tama.
Lumalakad sa mga pilapil, mga hindi paved na roads, maputik, no? At pagka-umulan, talagang hirap na hirap sila. So I think that education has to be brought, no, to these last miles para ang ating kasi yung mga batang yan, pag hindi natin na-reach yan, hindi natin nakuha yan, hindi natin na-educate, very vulnerable sa andali, no? Wala silang kaalaman, mangmang sila, andali nilang mapaniwala nitong mga grupo na ito, no? Dahil hindi nila alam kung ano talagang nangyayari sa labas, no?
That is true. Tama po. I'd like to correct myself. There were already 10 completed construction of the last mile schools, Doc, tapos 88 last mile schools ang i-construct ng Department of Education for the year 2023. So, sa akin, hindi talaga issue yung confidential funds because I am more into protecting our children, our learners from the outside influence of the communist terrorist groups. and other perpetrators of atrocities na nangyayari naman talaga, something that we cannot deny because it's really happening po.
Mhm. Aside from that, no, yung mga last mile, no? Meron din ang Department of Education na programa ng feeding, no?
Right.
Yan ay no? Napaka-importante ng feeding program ng Department of Education. I think no more than 1 million students are being fed by the Department of Education. Alam mo, Tiyo, no? Hindi pumapasok no yung kung ano man tinuturo ng teacher pagka kumakalamang insikmura, no? So yung brain development, no, ay nahahamper by malnutrition, no? So kahit gaano kagaling ang teacher, gaano araw-araw dinidrill sila, kapag the brain is not being developed because of nutritional deficiencies, eh mawawala lahat ng ating effort, no? So that is one thing that the Department of Education is doing, no? All right? So,
Correct.
oo.
Kasi ganito yon, one of the reasons why kids are not going to school, it's because wala silang makain, 'di ba? So with the feeding program done by the Department of Education, this would somehow help them out continue their studies without them worrying if they would be able to have a meal in a day, 'di ba? So some people are actually undermining this effort because they said na it's bare minimum. What these people do not understand really are the things, genuine things, real things na nangyayari sa mga grassroots level, sa mga barangays, yung sa mga far-flung areas. So I don't really get the reason why they oppose the programs done or implemented by the Department of Education, because I am actually seeing the benefits, and I'm seeing a lot of students and people who benefit from it. So if we continue to attack the Department of Education in implementing their programs, that means we are also attacking those beneficiaries. And that's the reason why it actually saddens me to hear that they crush the DepEd confidential fund, Doc.
Meron akong napanood na vlog ng dating presidential spokesperson na si Attorney Harry Roque. At nabanggit niya na sa unang pagkakataon ay may mga makakaliwang mambabatas na nasali sa minorya. Ang sabi niya, ang importansya ng minorya ay sila ang nagbubusisi ng budget. Yan. So naglagay ka ng mga tao sa minorya na maaari magbusisi ng budget ng mga departamento na maaaring may mga activities na magiging laban sa mga nature nitong ng grupo nitong mga mambabatas na ito, no? So tama, no? It doesn't really make any sense na binigyan mo ng pagkakataon ang mga tao na maging nalumaban, ano, or hadlangan ang mga inisyatibo ng isang government agency kung ito ay kalaban ng kanilang what the things that they stand for, no? If you are a leftist, naturally that you would oppose anything that will decimate or be disadvantageous to the leftist cause, di ba?
Correct. And one of the things that I have seen as well with the minority group is that they just oppose without them providing alternatives to the programs presented. So if they see that program is somehow disadvantageous to their side, they automatically oppose it without them giving out an alternative na, hey, what if we should do this? What if we should compromise and let's do this and implement this? Parang ganyan. The problem with them is they just automatically react and oppose, and then they paint a picture of VP Sara as if she is the villain. Yan yung pinaka-ayaw ko ngayon sa mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas, because as if you think of it, Doc, VP Sara is just fulfilling her mandates. We should
Uh,
remember that aside from being the vice president of the country, she is the concurrent DepEd secretary. She was
mhm.
also given the task to spearhead the NTF-LCAC as the vice co-chairperson. And that means
Uh-huh.
to say na if she will craft a project, pwede yung connected ba sa lahat ng agencies para naman na it would be easier for her to fulfill the mandates given to her by the president. So,
Mhm.
yan yung ano, pinakaayaw ko ngayon na while we understand the role of the minority, I do not understand why they do not provide alternative programs or
Mhm.
alternative projects that would really help out those beneficiaries of the programs crafted by the Department of Education.
Mm. Oo, basta ayaw na lang. At ano, ay, tama ka, no? It is unfair for them to be painting the vice president as, ano ba to,
Villain.
nakikinabang personally dito sa pondo na ito, no? They paid her as a greedy person, no? While in fact, no, they just have to look at where the expenses are going, no? So,
Right. And
talagang,
COA report is also available for them to review it, Doc. If they see
mm,
that, I mean, if COA found any irregularity on the DepEd and the Office of the Vice President's financial accounting, then that's, di ba? That's for them to decide to flag the OVP, to flag the DepEd, or
uh-huh,
to disallowance, di ba ganyan? But there
mm,
is none. There was
uh,
one time the OVP was flagged for parang yung mga lacking documents lang. But then the OVP submitted it. The OVP complied it, and now the OVP has gotten an unqualified opinion from COA. So that means walang kinurap.
mm,
Pero what they are amplifying, especially on social media, targeting the youth, is that the money was pocketed. So it's kind of
uh,
unfair because what they are referring to is the second highest duly elected official in the country and someone who got the highest vote so far in Philippine history. So wala, ano talaga, what am I seeing right now? All those things, all those allegations that are thrown at VP Sara are merely demolition jobs. Demolition jobs talaga.
demolition job.
Yes.
Totoo yan. Demolition job, no? They know that the vice president is, actually, if you think about it, no, the presidency is hers for the taking. No? Uh, there is no contender, strong contender that who we see on the horizon, except some who are being very ambitious and would like to run also for the highest position. We know who that is, no?
Yeah.
And they are afraid of the vice president. That's why as early as now, they are doing a demolition job against the vice president. It may not be true. And they know that. No? All their allegations, they know that it may not be true, but it has to look like that.
Like that.
No?
That's
Oo.
that's that's correct. And you know what? They are weaponizing the confidential funds as a way for them to attack VP Sara and to
Mm,
tarnish her reputation as early as now. Why?
mm,
Because they know exactly that the nature of confidential fund is something that is really confidential and it should not be divulged to the public.
mm,
It's not meant for public consumption.
mm,
So they are attacking VP Sara on it because they knew VP Sara is a lawyer. So
mm,
she knew the nitty-gritty of the confidential funds.
mm,
Tapos yun, they are attacking her. But you know what, Doc? It's just so disheartening to think na there are other agencies who have confidential funds, but why are these agencies not getting the same amount of scrutiny, the same amount of attack from these people? Is this because they are also paid or by that confidential fund? Is this because they are allies of that person? The reason why they are not scrutinizing the budget, diba? So it's kind of unfair. I am not I am not an anti-Marcos. I am a Uniteam supporter. But I just found it unfair na I am seeing a lot of Marcos supporters attacking VP Sara for the confidential funds, but they are not questioning the office of the vice president. I know the office of the president, who is the one who approved the confidential funds to begin with. Because if they think, if Congress and the office of the president think that the confidential fund will be a problem to VP Sara, if they knew that the confidential fund will be utilized by the enemies of VP Sara to tarnish her reputation, why did they approve that to begin with, right? Because if mali naman palaga ang confidential funds, why was it approved? Why was it allocated? Diba? So yan lang yung point ko. I am not saying that I am anti-Marcos. What I'm saying is the hypocrisy of these detractors of VP Sara, because it's kind of unfair that they are only targeting, singling out DepEd and OVP without asking accountability and transparency for the other agencies who have confidential funds and intelligence funds.
Kasi wala si Vice President Sara dun sa mga agencies na yon. So you see, the target is not really the intelligence fund, but Vice President Sara Duterte.
Right. It's a glaring, obvious, and very clear demolition job, really, Doc.
Ay, bago tayo magpatuloy, Tio, allow me to greet the people who are watching us now. Ito yung ating mga matyagang nanonood every day. No, Monday to Friday, and especially on Tuesdays. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Crespo Carlex. Sigrid Salukop Mackenzie, magandang gabi sa iyo. Sigrid Salukop Mackenzie is our girl in Ilocos. Yan. Magandang gabi. Naranyag ba ito? I forgot my Ilocano. Okay. Sepi Sabala, good evening mga kapugad. Okay, si Ferdinand Enriquez, good evening sa'yo. Arthur Kevin Rabago, magandang gabi. Sino pa? Ang ating Boy Riodica, good evening mga kapugad from BF Homes International, Las Piñas. Mr. Dennis Dulce, good evening sa'yo. Carly Resio, magandang gabi. Well explained daw. Salamat Carly sa iyong pakikinig. Lolit Camba Martinez, good evening. Grooming, ang sabi ni Sigrid Salukop Mackenzie, grooming is preparing a minor for sexual abuse, either online or in person. Grooming can also happen if a predator grooms or prepares minors for criminal activities such as trafficking them. Yan, grooming. So kasama siguro sa grooming ang pagkuha ng mga minor de edad, pag-train sa kanila. Alam mo, no, Tio, meron akong nakita na mga 7 years old, mga grade schoolers, ang gagaling mag-assemble ng mga armas, ng mga baril. No? So that is a form of grooming. No?
Right, and also Doc, sorry to cut you off.
Sige.
One of the things the government has found out sa mga salugpungan schools is the teaching itself. Before, 'di ba, sa normal schools natin, abakada, ganyan. Pero sa salugpungan schools, yung A naging armas, yung ba naging bala. So that's when yung mga minors natin ay tinuturuan mag-assemble ng mga baril. Kaya magagaling sila. So, yan lang. Addition lang yan sa ano.
Nagtataka ako, no? Ito, mga salugpungan schools, no? Ito ba ay nakarehistro sa Department of Education? At bakit for a long time ay nakalalagpas ang mga aktibidad nitong mga salugpungan schools? Bakit napabayaan, na-allow na mag-operate ito samantalang kung iyong sisiyasatin ay ang mga itinuturo ay kontra sa gobyernong ito? Paano nangyari yan?
Sa palagay ko, Doc, as I said earlier, that the system of the CPP, NPA, NDF is really strong, very solid talaga. May framework talaga sila in terms of their education, governance, their justice system, lahat-lahat complete yan sila. So it was only in 2018 or 19, if I'm not mistaken, when the executive order of President Duterte was implemented, Executive Order 70, which led to the creation of the NTFL-CAC. Now, nung nagkaroon na ng NTFL-CAC, it was found out that those salugpungan schools, Doc, are not registered sa DepEd. They don't have any permits to operate. And that means if they don't have any permits to operate, that means they are illegally operating. And so it's just necessary for the government to shut them down para naman po maproteksyonan, because it's useless to teach kids na kung saan hindi naman pala ma-credit because the school that they are studying ay hindi naman talaga registered sa DepEd, walang permit from the Department of Education. And on top of that, since wala itong permit or anong tawag dyan? Wala itong parang approval from the Department of Education, it would be hard for the Department of Education to monitor it. Kasi nga wala sa list, wala sa system, di ba? So now that the NTFL-CAC is working, they found out now, the salugpungan schools pala are not approved by the Department of Education. Wala itong mga permits. So kaya yon. But hindi yan hindi po yan iniwan ng ating gobyerno, hindi po yan iniwan ng Department of Education. Instead of continuing with the salugpungan schools po, the Department of Education continues to boost the last mile schools program. Because the same purpose lang po. Ano ngayon, yung last mile schools program, may proper papers, may mga permits, may approval from the DepEd, and yung mga teachers are really registered from the Department of Education. So that means may monitoring na, kailangan na ng surveillance from the DepEd, ma-under na siya sa budget. And so if you connect that one, Doc, since the Department of Education under the supervision of VP Sara now are about to finish 88 last mile schools program for this year. So that means kailangan talaga natin ng more surveillance, kaya kailangan natin ng confidential funds, 'di ba? So ito yung mga bagay na hindi masyadong na-discuss publicly because first, media is not covering it, and second, they don't have any plans to boost the projects and programs of VP Sara because we know she is a Duterte.
Yeah, And that also proves the point na kailangan talaga ng intelligence and confidential fund. Biro mo, all through these years, nag-flourish ang mga salugpungang schools yan. Why? Because the Department of Education is not minding its own store. No? Do people actually go to salugpungan schools and enroll? They actually have not heard that such schools exist? So, failure of intelligence talaga yan. But when intelligence funds are used wisely and properly, then you have that. You get to discover these things and you prevent our youth from being corrupted by these people. Diba?
Right. And Doc, just to add, when did we hear of 16 public schools in NCR who are involved in NPA recruitment? It is only during VP Sara's time. Because may surveillance, and it's confirmed by a lot of informants maybe na involved talaga yung 16 schools, and there's actually more to be discovered very soon. Kaya yun, they are attacking the confidential funds because once it's successful, it will lead to the exposure of those people who are helping out these people or groups of people infiltrate the school campuses. Yun po, kaya nati-trigger sila.
No, it's really heartbreaking, no? Alam na natin ang istorya ni Mrs. Ralisa Lucena, no? Na ang kanyang anak na babae ay bigla na lang tumakas, namundok, hindi na niya nakita, ayaw nang umuwi despite her pleadings, at she chose to join rebel groups, no, na kumalaban sa gobyerno. At yung pakiramdam ng mga magulang, no, na nabalitaan na lang nila, meron tayong malungkot yung terminolohiya, pero corned beef, no? I mean, that should not be used, no? But that's what happens to our youth, no? When we do not really take care that they are in safe environments. And that is what the Department of Education is making sure that our children, when they leave our houses, they will be safe in the schools.
True. And I also wanted to highlight, Doc, the reform that is currently undertaken by the Department of Education. We have the Matatag agenda. So there are four components of Matatag agenda that targets both the teachers, learners, classrooms, and the other needs, the curriculum of our learners. So it's already launched. If I'm not mistaken, last May or last July, the decongestion of the K-10 subjects. So that's part of the Matatag agenda po, na kung saan yung mga subjects na redundant or yung mga subjects na can be incorporated to, for example, to one subject, di-decongest na yan po ni VP Sara para po na hindi na naman din burden for our students to learn. Kasi nga, pabalik-balik na yung mga subjects nila. And on top of that, since may nagka-problem yung sa mga laptop, nagka-problem yung ganyan, yung iba pang issues ng DepEd, ang reform na ginawa po ni VP Sara is to create a separate strand for the procurement, na kung saan itong mga taong ito, ang trabaho talaga nila is to ensure that the procurement status, the procurement processes of the Department of Education is seamless. Yun po. Tapos at the same time, dahil nga, di ba, one of the things na inaatake kay VP Sara ngayon is ang shortage of classroom. And we know exactly that even before VP Sara became the DepEd Secretary, the classroom shortage is the primary problem sa DepEd. Pero ngayon, VP Sara created a separate strand for the classroom construction po, na kung saan itong mga taong ito, sila yung nagfo-focus lang po sa mga classroom construction, and right now, it's not really amplified by media, but the DepEd were able to build classrooms despite the fund released to them last October. Ganyan po, last October po na-release ang fund sa kanila. So it's hard for them to continue the classroom construction, pero they are able to do it. Naka-build pa rin sila ng classrooms because nga sa reform na ginawa ni VP, na gumawa talaga siya ng tao for the classroom constructions alone. Yan po.
Yun, napakaganda, no? At meron pa siyang programa sa mga alternative learning, no?
Yeah.
Alternative learning, ang mga kabataan na by circumstances, no? Their life circumstances, hindi makapunta sa paaralan, siguro handicap or malayo, ay merong pamamaraan na sila ay matuto rin, no? So magandang mga inisyatibo to. Yun nga lang, ano, katulad ng iyong napansin, ay hindi nagkakaroon ng pansin sa mainstream media at alam na natin kung bakit, no? So itutuloy ko yung ating pagbati sa mga nanonood sa atin. Sabi ni Sigrid D.S. Dickerson, it takes a while and is expensive when the government is fixing a system in its department, no? Talagang pagka nag-uumpisa ka pa lang ng mga bagong proyekto, ay talagang you have to invest, no? In these things. Sabi ni sabi ni Carly D. Resho, magandang gabi sa iyo, Carly. Consider the CIF, the Confidential and Intelligence Fund, as investment for our future generation. We want our kids to have a fighting chance, to have a better future, and not waste them to drugs and armed communists. Yan, no? Sabi, magandang gabi sa iyo, Alvi Bal. Magandang gabi, Roxanne Costo. Ang sabi ni Manny Felonia, the confidential and intelligence funds is designed to secure the state from internal and external threat. When such fund is used precisely for the same purpose of all departments as authorized by the President, then there can be no constitutional overreach. Ayan. Sabi ni Manny Felonia. Magandang gabi sa iyo, Elma Ramos. Magandang gabi, Saldi Bonifacio, Carlito Cabiles, Maverick, Michelle Benson, and Nit Buga. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Yan. Alright. So, tuloy natin ang ating, 7:54 na pala. Ayan. Ngayon, Tio, ay may napabalita, no, kanina na tinanggal, no? Tinanggal at nirealign ang CIF ng Vice President at binigay daw, no, along with kasama na rin yung CIF ng Department of Agriculture at iba pang opisina for other offices na i-redistribute daw. Ayan. So ito ay isang nakakapanlumo, no, discourage na development dahil alam natin kung gaano ka-importante itong CIF, particularly sa Department of Education, no? Ano ang iyong masasabi tungkol dito sa nabalita na tinanggal ang CIF for the budget of 2024?
In my opinion, it's a politically motivated move, Doc. Why? Because they saw the programs laid out by the Department of Education and the OVP, and they knew exactly that these programs that they are currently implementing directly affect and benefit those that are in the grassroots level. So if those projects by VP Sara in the DepEd and the OVP will be successful, it will be hard for them to attack or destroy VP Sara's image because she truly delivered. And I'd like also to make an emphasis on the two targets of the OVP. For VP Sara, she was mandated to do an institutionalization of the socio-economic programs and establish key programs for the nation building. So yung lahat ng mga ginagawa po ng DepEd and ng OVP, these are all to fulfill the mandates of our President Bongbong Marcos to achieve his pursuit on the 8-point socio-economic agenda po, Doc. So that means yung mga enemies na kinakalaban, kinukontra po si VP Sara, they are just doing it for their political agenda and not really for transparency or accountability. Because if we are to use their argument, then simply we can say that, okay, we should show the same level of scrutiny for those departments. Dapat din may lapagan ng mga programs and project. But as you can see, we didn't hear anything from those departments, those agencies. And we last words, we should consider the fact, Doc, that there are two threats that we are currently facing, internal threats and the external threats. So if the realignment of the confidential fund is for the West Philippine Sea, then I hope that there will be development in the West Philippine Sea. Because right now, internal threats are obviously infiltrating our school campuses, our poor and impoverished barangays. So NPAs, communist terrorist groups and other extremist groups in southern Mindanao, diba? They continue to attack people, and they continue with their atrocities for several years now. So I hope that they will really be successful on their, in their target of realigning the CF to the other agencies. Yan lang po, because as what I'm seeing, VP Sara will not waver. She will really do her best to ensure that the projects the DepEd and the OVP currently doing will really be successful, and it will truly be a legacy of Inday Sara. We call it the Inday Sara legacy, the Inday Sara supremacy. Yan lang po. Shout out po sa mga supporters ko. Thank you.
Salamat Mr. Tio Moreno sa papaulak ng aming imbitasyon para sa gabing ito. Sana po ay marami tayong natutunan sa mga binalita sa atin ng ating panauhin. Hanggang dito na lamang po, malapit na ang wakas ng ating programa. Salamat po sa pakikinig at like and share this episode at panoorin niyo po ang mga iba pang araw ng Pugad Vloggers dito sa DZRJ. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Pugad Vloggers, ang kurap titirisin, salot sa bayan wawalisin, walang sasantuhin, ang saya-saya nakakabaliw, kasama natin ang tropang Pugad Vloggers.